Hi, my name is Kelsey Fitzgerald, and I'm a science writer for the Desert Research Institute in Reno. My educational background, I have a master's degree in interactive journalism from the University of Nevada, Reno, and a bachelor's degree in biology from Skidmore College in upstate New York. I've been working in the field of science communications for about 5 years. And before that, I worked for about 10 years in the sciences, doing everything from environmental science research to wildland firefighting to um, biology, wildlife biology projects, and things like that. A typical day on the job for me, before the coronavirus pandemic, I worked on the Desert Research Institute campus here in Reno, where we have a few hundred scientists and a lot of different labs and people working on everything from wildfire research to analyzing ice samples from the Arctic, to doing water sanitation projects in Africa and all kinds of interesting things. So, my job is primarily to help tell the stories of what all the different scientists at DRI are working on. So, some of that happens in the form of press releases, like if a scientist comes out with some interesting findings or makes a new discovery, we put out a press release to tell the media about it. We also publish a blog, which is where we share some stories of projects that are still in progress and maybe haven't made their um, final findings yet, but they're working on something interesting, and we can kind of help tell their story as they are still working on it and show what some of the research actually looks like when it's happening. Um, and I also do some work on the DRI website, so helping scientists build web pages and hopefully market their services to support some of their research endeavors. The best part about my profession, I would say, is that I'm constantly learning. So I've been interested in science for a really long time, and I started off my career doing hands on work in the sciences. But as far as progressing my career in that direction, it seemed like most professional scientists end up spending years and years researching one or several really specific questions about really specific issues. And I always had trouble narrowing it down to that one really specific thing that I wanted to spend years and years on. So, what I really enjoy about being a science writer is that I get to learn about tons of different topics and talk to all the people at DRI who are experts in their fields and who are doing some of that leading research. But I don't personally spend years and years so zoned in on any particular topic. Um, so it's really fun for me just to get to learn about what everybody's working on and uh, get to help tell that story. There's a lot of variety, and hopefully, I could get to kind of contribute to their success in some small way by helping the scientists tell the story of what they've done and why it's important, and helping the public have a better understanding of why it all matters. The most challenging part of my profession, I would say, is that my job is basically to act as a translator between scientists and the public. So I try really hard to find ways to explain complex topics in a way that is both easily understandable and scientifically accurate. And that can be a really challenging thing to do. Scientists often use a lot of really technical language to talk about their work, and a lot of the words that they use have really specific meanings, and those meanings matter in ways that people outside of their field may not realize. Um, and even working within different branches of sciences, sometimes different terms have different meanings to different people. So it's always a challenge to find ways to tell a story that anyone can understand, no matter what their background is, but not lose the important meaning of what the scientist has accomplished or what they've learned. As far as recent developments or discoveries in my field that fuel the work forward, I would say the, I mean, it's true for everyone, I think, right now that the COVID-19 pandemic has created new challenges and even new opportunities in a lot of ways. So, for us in science communications, I think it has turned out to be a great time to help scientists tell the story of anything that they're working on that's related to COVID-19. But it definitely has been challenging sometimes to get coverage of stories that are not related to the coronavirus pandemic. Um, so we've been using a lot of Zoom and other video chat services for meetings and having some live speaker events as a way of helping people communicate their science and just trying to figure out how to best meet the needs of our scientists and get the stories out to the public during this unusual time. How our profession gives back to the community. I hope that through our work in science communications that we are able to give the community a better understanding of science and why it matters. That's kind of why I originally got into this field. I was doing conservation work with a rare species of fish that lived out in rural Nevada in some pretty isolated springs. And it was in a location where a lot of people had been dumping bass and other sport fish into the ponds where these fish lived. And it just really hit me that as much as it's important to be doing this work in the sciences and working on these big problems, it's maybe equally important to make sure that there's some buy-in from the local community and make sure that efforts are always being made to make sure that people in the local area, wherever work's being done, understand why their resources are so special and so important to protect. Um, and that kind of motivated me to switch gears a little bit from working directly in the sciences to helping to tell the stories and communicate why it matters. So I think, and I think that applies to all scientific projects everywhere. Like it's so important to have people doing that work, but it's also maybe equally important to spend some amount of time making sure that the public understands what it is that you're doing and why it matters. And so for me, making the change from doing hands-on science work to working in science communications was sort of what I hope um, is a way for me to give back to the community a little bit and hopefully helping in some small way to create a more scientifically literate world.